Hello and welcome to this week's edition of The Olive Tree with me, Julia Fisher. This is the programme that brings you news and interviews from both Jewish and Arab believers in Jesus living in Israel, especially those involved in reconciliation. This week, my guest is Nashat Filmon. He's the director of the Palestinian Bible Society based in Jerusalem. Although Nashat's work involves him working mainly with Palestinian people, he works closely with the Jewish team of the Bible Society in Israel. They share a common goal, which is to make the Bible available to all. Nashat's own story is complex, and like so many people you hear on this programme, his life has been shaped by the challenge of growing up in Israel and living with danger, conflict, and even hostility. But as you're about to hear, it is through these difficulties that Nashat has developed his faith and is able to do the work he does. I met Nashat in Jerusalem recently when I went to the headquarters of the Palestinian Bible Society. He was alone in his office watching the news in Arabic. On this particular day, there was trouble on the streets of Cairo, and many people were being injured. Nashat takes up the story.
My father is Egyptian. He came to the country here before the 1967 war. He was previously part of something called the Jerusalem Union. And the Jerusalem Union is an Egyptian union that is made specially to support the Christians here and the biblical sites and ministry. So therefore he was part of that union, and at a certain time in his life he decided to come here to Jerusalem and volunteer for a couple of years as they were doing some reconstruction at the Holy Sepulchre Church in the old city of Jerusalem. And that's where he comes from. He, after that, stayed a little bit longer and the war erupted, and this meant that he couldn't go back to Egypt at that time. And he stayed longer in Jerusalem. And then he met my mom, who was born in Jerusalem. My mom is a pastor kid. Her father was a pastor in the old city of Jerusalem, pastoring Church of God church. And he used to go to that church from time to time. And they met there and got married. And here I am.
So you were born here in the old city of Jerusalem. What was it like in those days growing up?
Living in the old city of Jerusalem is something significant because you have all the historical and biblical sites just around you. So going up to the roof of where I used to live, my parents' home, I would see the Holy Sepulchre Church from one side and the Mount Olives from the other side, and the Temple Mount or the Dome of the Rock also. And I'd see other churches surrounded by churches and holy sites. It's a special place. It's also not easy to live in because you cannot drive your car inside the old city of Jerusalem. So we used to walk a lot around the city. I never called my friend. I always whistled and he would come out from his home and we would meet and go somewhere. It's special. We also had the intifadas. I grew up through both of the intifadas, and that was a difficult part because for many years, we were not allowed to leave our home or even our neighborhood. They say that we would go to school in the morning and then come back, and that's what it was. We were not allowed to go far because many things could have happened to us. I mean, being arrested or being beaten up or being shot. Many of the people we know around us have been attacked in this way. So that was part of the difficulties that we had living in the old city. But overall, it was I believe, a pleasant experience. Now I don't live anymore there, but yesterday I was visiting there, and it feels very special to belong to this place. Sometimes you feel that because you see all these sites every day, you miss out on the significance of these places and what they resemble and represent. And living close to the Holy Sepulchre Church, and actually in Arabic it's called Kanisat al-Qiyamah, the Resurrection Church, which I like much more than the Holy Sepulchre Church. as a name, is something very special, remembering that Jesus resurrected from the death and he gave us victory.
Nashat, that's a very positive outlook on your memories of growing up, really during a time of enormous conflict and upheaval. Was there a negative side to it? Were you very, very conscious that there was a them and us?
We grew up with them and us all the time. That was an ongoing challenge. My father, who was, again, a simple man, he used to drive a truck. He was one of the very few people who spoke Hebrew in the neighborhood. So people used to come to him and ask him to, do favors. But the language is a great barrier. We didn't speak the Hebrew language. We spoke Arabic. And only 5 minutes walk from where I live to outside the old city, people are, speaking Hebrew all the time. They don't speak Arabic. That was one of the big challenges or barriers between us and them. We also felt that the culture is totally different. And being a Palestinian Christian living in the old city as part of the bigger culture, the Muslim culture, you always use terminology that they also use in the language. I mean, politically, these terminologies are totally wrong, so you'd call them the Jews all the time, and which is funny for me when I think back now and I say, okay, they are Israelis. Some of them are Jews, some of them are not Jews, but everybody calls them the Jews, and they are also called as the Arabs, although we come from different backgrounds, the Armenian, the Greek Orthodox, the Copt, and all of that. So there was a big gap between us and them all the time.
Did it have an adverse effect on your attitude to living here, on your attitude to people in general?
Because of the restrictions that we had at home, and because whenever we had a chance to go and visit them, we felt that we are so much deprived from the basic things that we supposed to have, the freedom to move, the freedom to do things as we like. And it always felt like we are like being looked at as inferiors. And that, of course, carried a lot in my heart, growing up with this kind of atmosphere around you. Also, you have to remember that the occupation, the army was all the time present in the old city of Jerusalem, next to our homes, next to our schools, and that was our only encounter. They would stop us. Where are you from? Give me your ID. We didn't have a healthy or a positive relationship. So, of course, either I like it or not, it built up kind of a strange feeling, if you like, animosity, hatred, maybe envy also. Why should we suffer all of this suffering? And although I should say in my home, I grew up in a very healthy environment. And my mom is an extremely good Christian. She loves all the people. She cares for the Muslim people, and she cares for the Jewish people. So that kind of has kind of bordered it and not allow all of these feelings and hatred to grow. It would have been fostered if I had a home where people did not care and they were not Christians. And that made the difference also.
So you went to school, you grew up, and when you reached your teenage years, what did you imagine you would be doing as you got older? What were your dreams and ambitions?
I always dreamed to have a fancy restaurant or a hotel. That was and I would be sitting, meeting with people, welcoming them and smiling for them and helping them out with things as they come to my hotel or my restaurant, and make sure that they are taken good care of. That was my dream. So therefore, after school, I went to the hotel and restaurant management faculty at Bethlehem University, studied there. hotel and restaurant management. And soon after that, I was as I was studying, I got a job, started learning the practicalities of this study, and then after that, as I finished my school years at the university, I was offered to manage that hotel and restaurant. At the same time, I received another offer from the Bible Society to join them. And at that time, the Lord was working through my heart. I submitted my dreams and my life into Him. I'll never forget in a meeting in the old city of Jerusalem, I was invited to attend, and I went there, and the whole meeting was about, the end days, and what are your dreams, and what if something happens to you. It was kind of, scary, but lots of truth was placed in it. And there, the Lord touched my heart and changed me. And the decisions since that moment in my life has changed. And therefore, specifically in that case, I decided to join the Bible Society.
Nashat Filmon, director of the Palestinian Bible Society in Jerusalem, sharing his story. And you can hear more from Nashat on next week's programme. You're listening to The Olive Tree with me, Julia Fisher. And as I mentioned in the introduction, the voices you hear on this programme are all believers in Jesus who live in Israel today, both Jewish and Arab people. The Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund is a Christian charity based in the UK that supports the needs of both Jewish and Arab Christians living in the Holy Land, especially those involved in reconciliation. If you'd like to know more about our work and receive our free bi-monthly newsletter, please either visit our website, olivetreefund.org, or write to me, Julia Fisher, at the Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund, P.O. Box 850, Horsham, RH12 9GA in the UK. And if you'd like to hear this programme again or any edition of The Olive Tree, please visit the website, olivetreefund.org. Join me at the same time next week for another story from the Olive Tree. Until then, goodbye.